Hello, hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of ESPN FC Live, our weekly live stream show here on YouTube. We're on 3 times a week in the day, just before we get the boys on for ESPN FC at night. I'm Alexis Nunes alongside Janusz, Michallik, and James Olley is joining us all the way from Stamford Bridge. That's exactly where we are going to start today because we were treated to the Merseyside derby earlier on. And this evening, we got a London derby. We had Arsenal from up north going to Chelsea in the west, and it was looking, James, like it was going to be definitely Chelsea's best performance that we've seen so far and a big result to them. But Arsenal fought back from 2 goals down to get at least a point at Stamford Bridge. How much of a chance was this blown for Chelsea?
Yeah, I think that's the story, really. I thought they were brilliant, really, in the first half. Probably for the first hour or so, this was certainly the best performance under Pochettino, and one of the best performances since the Todd Bowley Clear Lake takeover. I think that there will be a huge amount of regret that they weren't able to see it through. If you think about even at 2-0 and late in the game, Nicholas Jackson came on having a couple of chances to score a third, which you would have thought would have killed it off. They had a good measure of control, and Arsenal, where we sit here in the press box, can't see it from this angle, but we're only about 10, 15, probably say 10 rows from the dugout. And Mikel Arteta is normally quite animated on the touchline anyway, but from minute one today, he was quite angry at his own team's performance. You could tell he was frustrated with how they were giving the ball away. They just did not look at it at all. And I think a big part of that was that Pochettino surprised Arsenal with the setup, slightly shifting things tactically, playing Cole Palmer as a false nine, snuffing out Odegaard in central areas as Arsenal tried to build play through the midfield. Cucurella doing a fantastic job, and Bukayo Saka on a 1v1 on that left-hand side. And for a long time, it really looked as though they had Arsenal where they wanted them. The fact that they've not been able to see it out will be a huge source of frustration, because it's these kind of results that can be real building blocks for a young team thrown together like this, and a manager who obviously only has been in the role for a couple of months.
Well, once again, there were some decisions, of course, that we're going to talk about in a bit, whether a certain handball was a handball or not these days. We will talk about that soon. But Janusz, as James was saying, Chelsea definitely putting forward what was their best performance so far under Mauricio Pochettino. And Arsenal, we can definitely say, were far from their best, but they are still a strong team. Even though I know you have Liverpool as the main contenders to push City title, but many still believe Arsenal are in it with a good shout too. So was this a fair result?
Well, I mean, fair. I mean, what's fair, right? I mean, Arsenal showed something that over probably a decade, they haven't, right? I mean, we've talked about Arsenal being soft. We've talked about Arsenal not having the spine. We've talked about Arsenal not having a character. I mean, just a few years back, right? This is a game that Arsenal never comes back from. And, it's a little bit of luck, you have to say. And I don't want to single people out, but I mean, Robert Sanchez gave them life. I mean, he absolutely gave them life. That one goal brought him back, even on the second one. And, that's probably not for the show, but I still, part of me thinks that ball by Saka, he always knew where it was going. He could have helped Gusto, even though he fell asleep there after having a tremendous game at right back. But I mean, this tells me a lot about both teams, both positive. Unfortunately, the supporters and their managers will probably not feel about it differently, because Chelsea definitely gave points away. I think James is absolutely right. The shape without the ball of Chelsea was superb. The 4-4-2 created massive problems for them, because remember, I thought that Arteta outcoached Pep in a way that he forced them inside and he won the battle in there, right? And I always felt like, why is Pep and Manchester City not attacking them when they don't have Saka and Martinelli? Here, Martinelli and Saka were both back, but I think that 4-4-2 without the ball allowed the likes of Mudryk and Sterling without the ball to help out Gusto and Cucurella, and that's why Saka and Martinelli were not existent until, of course, Saka delivered that good cross. So James is quite right. I think this was a Poch's team. So he's going to be happy with that he saw the energy. The pressing was good. Remember early in the first 2 or 3 minutes, issues with Declan Rice with bad passes and Odegaard. They were in massive trouble. So 2 points lost for Pochettino and Chelsea, because the building blocks of that win would have gone a long way. But for Arteta, my goodness, great escape. But how important is that when you're looking for that progress? I mean, I'm sure he's going to go back to this game over and over and over again, because those are important points.
Well, James, one of the things that I think we're probably going to go over and over again a little bit once again has to do with the VAR decision. Of course, Chelsea took the lead thanks to Cole Palmer converting from the penalty spot. A handball was given on William Saliba, and at halftime, pretty much everyone was debating whether it was deliberate, because it looked like he was jumping, and how else do you propel yourself up but to use your hands to balance yourself? From you there at Stamford Bridge, what's all the talk been like in the press box?
Well, under the current interpretations of the rules, it's a penalty, but the rules are ridiculous. What we're trying to do here is apply a binary set of principles to what is a handball and what isn't, because this desperate search for consistency has removed the referee's ability to use his own judgment. And so we're getting these situations where, instead of allowing a referee to decide, applying common sense, he's having to apply this ludicrous, arbitrary line that's been drawn, which is an unnatural position. Now, if you look at the still, of when Mudryk's header hits Saliba, of course it looks unnatural, because Saliba's arm's out, almost a right angle to his body. And if you look at that still, and if the referee is told to go to the touchline, and there's particularly when you're talking about giving a potentially penalty for the home team, you're looking at that still, and clearly you've been told you might need to look at this again. VAR is in his ear saying you might need to look at this again. How can you give any other decision than a penalty? But if he was actually allowed to look at the situation in real time and say, do you know what, this is an on-field call that you need to make. Actually, how do you jump without your arms coming away from your body in one way or another, one. And secondly, the distance between Mudryk and Saliba at the time of which Mudryk actually makes that header. There's no conscious decision to try and handle the ball there. But under the letter of the law, in this current interpretation, it's a penalty. And that's where the problem lies. And that's where I have a lot of sympathy for the on-field referee in this situation, because what is he supposed to do? He's probably standing there thinking, really, I know this is a bit of a silly decision, but because of the way we're trying to eliminate any inconsistency from the game, it's creating an inconsistency in a different way, if you see what I mean.
Janusz, as a former player yourself, what do you make of what James says? Because it's true with all of these decisions that we're seeing a lack of consistency. We don't know it's a penalty or not anymore.
It's true, but part of me, and I said the same things as James said, and I thought about it, and as a player, but I kind of, at the end, I wholeheartedly disagree with that. I think it's a penalty, because at the end of the day, what do we give the penalty for? Other than somebody stopping the ball purposely on the line, what would you give it for? So think about this, because Mudryk is in an identical position as he is. It's just, he gets there first. And, at some stage, if handball is going to be pretty much a penalty, because, it's one of those situations where he gets there first, he heads the ball, and the ball is being stopped from going on goal. Now, I don't know if that's going to be a goal or not, if that effort was strong enough or not, but it doesn't matter. So he does stop it from there. And but
Janusz, surely it's got to be conscious. Surely there's got to be some element
but there's the consciousness. Yeah, but the conscious decisions out the window. It's not right. I mean, that's never been, for how many years now that.
If it's a deliberate handball or not, we've taken that out of the equation. If you go back to the old interpretation of whether that is a deliberate handball or not, and
there is never a deliberate situation, never ever, unless you on the line and you stop the goal. It was in 19.
Defenders putting their arms out to stop a cross.
Well, you have to do it.
We've also seen when the balls come in high from a corner and a defender's jump like this.
But it's hardly deliberate. Nobody is stopping it unless you have a brain fart. My point is that because we have to decide, and that arm is stopping the header, you have to get there first. Look at it. Mudryk is in an identical situation. Same story, identical. Going for a header with the arm out, just like Saliba. Identical. He gets there first. And at some stage, you have to say to yourself, if you don't give it for that, no matter how ridiculous you think that is, what do you give a handball for? Of course, as a player, I would have said the same thing. But we have to make those decisions. Forget VAR, forget everything else. We have to give, in the laws of the game, You know, I mean, if this was being played, you know, you and I played five-a-side somewhere in London, I mean, surely immediately you say it's a handball, and that's what happens. That's what we are as fans, and you have to make that decision. So I don't say this lightly. I know I'm going to probably get some hate, and there's plenty of you know. Normally, my initial reaction was that, yeah, I mean, he can't be. Of course, I know he didn't mean it. Of course, it's by seconds, but you make a conscious decision to go for a head ball. You're fighting for that ball with Mudryk. You get their second best, where Mudryk, I'm telling you, look at it, is an identical situation. Head, his arm is out. And, you know, you stop that from going on goal. So at some stage, if you don't give it, imagine, I'll put it differently. Imagine if Mudryk, it hits his arm, drops, and he puts it away. What would you say?
Well, I reject the premise of the question. No, well, listen, I reject the premise of the question because I don't think that it's an identical situation. What for once, Mudryk is running one way and Saliba's running the other. So Saliba's naturally going to have to turn his body to defend. Mudryk's attacking the ball. They're not the same motions. So it's not the same.
You may have to look at that. Look, I know that in the mind of everybody, I hope actually I win this fight. I know I probably won't, but
you're not going to get any hate from me, Janusz.
They're both going for that ball. But I mean, that arm is there, and I get it that in, you know, the proximity and all of that. But in my opinion, that header, Mudryk gets there first, and that's significant. I don't care if he's late or not. It's significant. Just like tackles, sometimes you go for a tackle and you're 100% sure you're going to win it. You get there late and you get penalized with either a penalty or a red card very often, right? And in this case, he gets there second and he stops that ball from going on goal. I mean, if we don't give it for that, what do we give it for? And you know, you can say the proximity, but that cross, by the way, it takes a while to get there. And you know, there are risks in the game. So that's why I don't have a big issue. Now, by the way, I could be tweaked like you are, because I know deep down, if I were in that position, I go with you on that one. But we're not in that position. We have to look at it. There is VAR. Yes, we get to look at it 5, 6, 7, 8 times. But for as long as that situation's there, for as long as replay's there and VAR is there, at some stage, you have to call something a handball.
Well, at least VAR's ended the debate about penalties and handball and all of that.
Exactly. I'm pretty sure we're going to be debating this more, but we're definitely going to talk about some more stuff that stood out. You know, Chelsea, James, were pretty much in control of this game until that Sanchez clearance error. And he wasn't the only goalkeeper today that looked a bit rocky there. Again, the questions around Raya, especially with a certain Aaron Ramsdale, kind of sat down watching. Just your thoughts on the goalkeeping, and will Mikel Arteta kind of scratch his head after this?
No, I mean, what Raya is doing is exactly what Mikel Arteta wants. He spoke about this quite well, actually, after the Man City game, that, you know, in the way that they are trying to build out from the back, he wants him to have more touches, to take risks, to invite the press onto him, if you like, because he feels that it can then get Arsenal's attacking players on the ball in space in earlier positions earlier in the move. Look, I mean, the Arsenal fans got quite nervy about it during the City game, and clearly something he's going to have to learn to handle is away from home in these big matches. Crowds are going to get on his. If they're going to keep doing this, crowds are going to get on him. You know, they are going to try and unsettle him. They are going to encourage, particularly when you've got, as Janusz quite rightly pointed out earlier, you know, with the 4-4-2 without the ball, and they had Cole Palmer and Conor Gallagher leading the press forward, who both worked absolutely tirelessly without the ball today. Really, really good for Chelsea. When you've got players like that who are willing to go and close them down, you are inviting pressure. You are, creating risk at the back. And obviously there was that incident where Raya gave the ball away, and he recovered quite well.
Against Palmer,
against Palmer, that's right, yeah. So there could have been an absolute howler from him today. I mean, as it turns out, Sanchez was the one who made the mistake. I've seen a bit of chat about blaming Raya for the Mudryk goal. I don't see that at all. I think that's a Mudryk cross that he's hit. It's a freak that it's gone in. I don't think he meant it at all. I don't think you can blame the goalkeeper or his positioning for that at all. But as you quite rightly say, I mean, Aaron Ramsdale wasn't here today. His wife's just given birth to a baby boy. But, you know, every time David Raya makes a mistake, normally it gets the camera cut to Ramsdale in the stands. and it is a decision that is going to warrant greater scrutiny. The more that Raya looks uncomfortable, and the more risks that he takes in playing out from the back.
Janusz, your thoughts on the goalkeeping?
Yeah, I think he's made up his mind. I mean, he's going to stick with the principle because that's the way he wants to play. It's a little bit like with Onana, right? I mean, although they don't have maybe a Ramsdale on the bench, but I think he's going to stick with him because of the way of playing, and deep down he knows that Ramsdale probably is never going to be as comfortable as Raya. However, if this continues, I mean, there's going to be natural pressure. There's going to be pressure from pundits. It's going to be not that Arteta will listen to us, but it piles on from the supporters and all that. And if the goalkeeper loses confidence every time he steps on the pitch, from the Arsenal faithful, you look around and says, well, yeah, it's Ramsdale. It's not just any other young or 39-year-old reserve goalkeeper. So I think there's a limit to that. But I think if it's every so often, I think the risk is worth taking. It's like a high line. I remember speaking with Patrick Vieira, who had a high line, and he truly believes in that, just like Jurgen Klopp. And he says, look, I know before the game, it's built into it that we're going to give away 2, maybe sometimes even 3 breakaways. I'm willing to pay the price for that risk, because with every mistake, you kind of learn to think and play a little bit quicker. And so that kind of goes with a goalkeeper playing out of the back.